Trust is just absolutely drained totally out of our human existence. And how it's ever going to be recovered is a bit of a mystery. The president of this country has a 37% trust rating. And while that sounds low, 80% of the civilized first world countries are lower than that. France is lower than that. Go right through the list. Germany is lower than that. So be aware that it's not just our country that is suffering for a lack of trust. It's every country. And if 37% sounds low, you already know this, Congress is 1/3 of that. 37% is higher than the banking system, it's higher than the educational system, it's higher than the medical industry, and it's higher than the journalism industry. 37% is high. Now what does that tell us? That means there's no trust left on this planet. I mean, that's not really high, is it? 1/3 of everybody trusts a word that's coming out of a person's mouth. That's a serious problem. Now I'll tell you where it becomes a serious problem for us, and here's my Harvard part coming out. Our industry, look around you, is discretionary income based. What happens in a world of discretionary income when you're not trusted anymore? It goes away. And as a Harvard guy, I'm going to tell you that 5 to 10 years from now, when the millennials, who are soon going to own all the money and all the power, when they come into their place 5 to 10 years from now, this industry is going to plummet if we do not recover that trust. Because it is optional. That's what discretionary means. It's optional. The millennial generation, they're not really all about personal property. They're more about experiences. And if we can't deliver an experience with the artistry of colored stones, we're going to pay a price for that. The value and the liquidity of everything you see in this arena and all the other ones around the world are going to plummet 5 to 10 years from now, and we need to get a little bit of a head start on that. So it just so happens that the same year that the Great Recession took place in 2008, a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto invented a technology that can actually create some trust. How many of you have heard of blockchain? Probably everybody, right? Blockchain can be just something that I've labeled marketing blockchain. And I've had these conversations with some of the best players in our industry, and they already know this. We have a small chance of about 5 years in order to solve a problem and create true blockchain, ethical, responsible sourcing and supply chain security versus marketing blockchain. People are letting that word roll off of the tongue just left and right, and it's almost just pure silliness because it's self-serving. You know, something that's been in a vault in some other country on another continent for 10 years, you pull it out, you put it on the blockchain, and all of a sudden it's supposed to be secure, right? Ethically sourced because it's on the blockchain, and that's just frankly not true. Who knows what kind of crimes were committed in those 10 years before it actually was cut and polished and put on the market. It's not secure because it's on the blockchain, and don't let anybody ever convince you of that. Consider blockchain to be something like a college diploma. So what if I put on my LinkedIn account or in my CV, in my resume, college diploma from Princeton, Stanford, Harvard, whatever? That probably will double or triple my lifetime income because it's a branding thing. So think of blockchain this way. If I said I had that degree and I could line up 10,000 people that said, yeah, I was with him his freshman year when he cut down the top of an evergreen tree in the university front lawn and drug it into his dorm room and used it for a Christmas tree. Now that didn't happen. So just forget I said that. But I saw that. I was sat with him in his classes. I was up with him at 3 a.m. studying. I watched him walk across the stage and take the diploma from the president's hand and shake his hand. So 10,000 people all lined up to say, I saw the beginning, I saw the middle, I saw the end. Yes, I concur. We are in concurrence that this blockchain does in fact exist and this person does have a college diploma. Now compare that with what we'll call the marketing blockchain. I have 10,000 people that saw me put a logo on my LinkedIn account that had the university on it. I have 10,000 people that saw me put the name of the university on my CV, on my resume. Is that really blockchain? That's like taking wadding up a piece of paper, throwing it in a vault, and spinning the dial and calling that secure. ethically sourced. Is it ethically sourced because it's on the blockchain? And the answer is absolutely not. And so my reason for bringing this up is the millennials are too smart to get away with that kind of nonsense, right? We're too smart to even play that game. Let's not do it. Let's actually build a system that has what they call in the blockchain world. I own part of 2 different blockchain companies, and we have our own blockchain company, so I kind of know how this works. Let's take care of this thing called the last mile. Now, in our case, it's not really the last mile, it's kind of the first 4 miles. But the principle is the same. Anytime a human can touch something, can alter the path, can take it, money laundering, human trafficking, weapons, drugs, organized crime, whatever that happens to be, how do you solve that problem? Well, blockchains are the first time in human history that we can actually solve that problem if we're actually doing it. If we're doing it right instead of just pretending we're doing it, spinning the dial and saying, oh, it's on the blockchain. If we're doing it right, and we use barometric pressure sensors, we use the Internet of Things, we use biometric measurements, and we use all the geotagging and timestamps. We do all the things from the mind so that when you get to the jeweler's counter, you can actually touch an app or scan a QR code and see the exact path of a stone all the way from the beginning to the end with timestamps. You know for sure that if it actually ventured off of the path from the mine to the village to the port of departure, from the lapidary, you can actually see from the sensors, RFID and all the other sensors that are baked into doing it right, to remove the human fallacies from it. If you actually do that, you can prove that this was ethically sourced. And those are the questions that are going to be asked. And we need to answer those questions for 2 reasons. One is the value of the product. Liquidity and the price point are going to change drastically 5 years from now. Trust me. They're going to change if we don't do something about this early on. When the power and the money are in the hands of the millennials, they will not put up with nonsense. They care about free-range lettuce. They care about vegan automobiles. They care about ethically sourced luxury products that are discretionary income based. They care, and we need to make sure that that happens properly. We need to solve those last mile problems. Here's where we can go with it. We're not only solving a price point problem and a liquidity problem, but we are actually helping potentially generations. So we work primarily in Afghanistan, actually exclusively in Afghanistan. The average daily wage is $2. What if you and your children owned $3 trillion in assets and yet had to live on $2 a day? It doesn't need to be. Think of all that would change in the world if we were to take some simple steps. 70% of all crimes in the U.S. are committed by people who were high school dropouts. Crime and poverty are very intertwined. Crime and education are very intertwined. If we can start solving the problems of taking $3 trillion and turning it, like for example Dubai did, into an infrastructure that provides free education and a quality of life in a general way, then we've accomplished something dramatic for the generations to come. So this is a video that kind of sums it up. It's 30 seconds. You can kind of feel the difference of what ethical sourcing and responsible sourcing can actually do. By the end of this year, we'll have Afghanistan's first lab for all of their colored stones and natural resources. We've already trained the first 2 Afghans in cutting and polishing at a very, very high level, very successful at that. We're creating a system for doing that. We're going to turn these $3 trillion of resources into an industry for their youth to help solve the future of their youth's problems and create an environment for them. One of my friends was involved in doing this for ivory. He was in charge of the U.S. law enforcement for solving problems such as the smuggling of ivory. Basically what I'm saying is we can not only protect our industry, but we can actually change the world if we can build back in some trust that has been drained out over the past couple of generations. Ask the questions. When somebody says blockchain, say, can you tell me how you got there? Just ask that question, and it'll force all of us to be more mature in our use of the word in order to actually help the planet instead of just helping to market an item. Thanks for listening.